Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another D4H live stream. I feel like it was just yesterday that I was here hosting a live stream for a company. For those that have not met me yet, my name is Billy. I am the Emergency Management Solution Specialist here at D4H. And today we have another very special guest from Kaufman County, Texas, in the United States, Mr. Steve Huey. So let's bring him into this live stream here. Steve, hello again. How's it going?
Hey, Billy, how are you today?
Good. I'm doing great. And Steve, just to kick us off here, why don't you tell me a little bit about who you are, what your role is, a very brief life story for our audience.
Well, I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator for Kaufman County. I'm also considered the Director of the Office of Emergency Management. I started a public safety career as a police officer in 76, 77. Spent 32 years with the Dallas Fire Department, spent a short time in the military, and now I'm doing emergency management for Kaufman County. And I am still loving it. I enjoy coming into work and just thrilled to be here.
I totally forgot that you were also a first responder. So first responders alike, it's nice to be chatting with them. Although I feel like you got both law enforcement and fire department. I did fire department, and now I'm just EMS. I don't do fire anymore, but similar path into that there. So let's talk about D4H today. Obviously, that's why we're here on the call. Before we jump into the software, let's talk about Kaufman County, because every single county, every single jurisdiction, every geography is different. So can you tell me a little bit about Kaufman County and the emergency management agency that you currently oversee?
Kaufman County is about 807 square miles. The last couple of years, we've been listed as the fastest growing county in the United States. I think the most recent one has put us back at number 2. We're mostly rural, but we're growing. We expect to bump around or over 200,000 in our population this year on the estimates. And with growth like that comes a lot of different things. We've been plagued by windstorms and floods most recently. Thank goodness we don't have very many tornadoes. I keep telling folks that I'm the one that takes care of that. I talk to my best friend and he keeps them away from us. So I'm not sure how much of that's true, but I try. But it's mostly rural, and we're growing and trying to meet the needs of a growing population.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you talked a little bit about windstorms and flooding and, at least not tornadoes. So I heard that a lot in the Midwest has been going on a lot with tornadoes recently. What other types of natural disasters does Texas encounter? I guess specifically in your county. I don't know if you can also speak maybe a little bit to wildfires as well. Is that something that happens in Kaufman County?
Every year. Usually we have it twice a year. Once everything dies off in the winter, we have our winter fire season. And usually about July and August, when everything dries out from lack of rain, we have another one. So, and that's something that we're, very heavily involved in, coordinating resources for those. So we stay busy on our wildfires. We certainly have had tornadoes. This last May, we had a windstorm that came through and created a tremendous amount of devastation in the county. Nearly $1 million worth of vegetative debris management that we had to go through. So it's been pretty intense. Also, a lot of local flooding recently that we've had to deal with. And that's always very difficult because we don't have any boat teams. So we're kind of relying on the state and our neighboring jurisdictions to bring in boats and, resources to help us with those.
Yeah, I was going to say too, from the photos that Amy is showing on the background. Also, again, for people in the audience, we have Amy, our marketing manager, again, pulling the strings and making sure the stream runs smoothly. But, with all this mutual aid and I guess all the boats and stuff, so I want to learn a little bit more too about the actual agency at Kaufman County. So for your emergency management agency, how many people work for the county at your agency? What kind of, do you have like a traditional ICS structure? Is there anything unique to Kaufman County, would you say, in terms of just structure of people?
Well, we have 3 full-time people in my office, myself and Tiffany Casey, and then I've got Natalie part-time, and she's a whiz at GIS. She's been a godsend through this last disaster. It's a small office. We've got a dedicated EOC. We keep in a hot status. All you got to do is walk in and go to work. We don't have enough staff to do everything we do. And I'll tell you that Texas is big, as most people know, 254 counties, and there are 254 different emergency management offices. We do stuff that nobody else does, particularly around the hazmat stuff. We don't have hazmat teams, so the folks in my office are kind of the officials or subject matter experts on hazardous materials. And so we wind up going on a lot of those calls and coordinating cleanups. But pretty much in our county, about the only thing we have not had is a tsunami. Now, saying that, I did apply several years ago, and we did have a certification with the Weather Service for being a tsunami-ready community.
All right.
I think the Weather Service kind of got a kick out of that.
That's awesome.
And we have had earthquakes before, but they're kind of rare.
Yeah.
Just north of us, back in the 30s, they had a 5.2 in Greenville, which is about 30 miles north of us.
Yeah.
So we can have pretty much anything on the books.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's funny you mentioned, being tsunami ready, and, on the conversation of readiness and preparedness, I think let's go into some conversation about the software and kind of your journey into joining D4H. The first question I have on the docket, again, kind of learning a little bit more on the variety of different operations that you were talking about at Kaufman County, and especially with 3 people, or 3.5 people rather. Before you heard about D4H or were using a D4H software, what was your go-to method or strategy for dealing with emergencies in your county?
Well, I pretty much use my PDA, and if you can see it, here is my PDA.
Oh, paper! Look at that.
So we were still doing everything paper. We had initially started moving over to taking our printed and handwritten documents and scanning them to store them, to try and give us some more space as far as our documents. And that was pretty hard because we were using the scanner on a office printer. And some of them worked real good, some of them didn't. And then we had one of our other part-time people, Sarah Hawk, and she's smart as a whip, but she got in there and we started trying to use Teams. And she came up with some great ideas, and we started building a system with the team software. And the problem we ran into is our county IT department would not give us full access to the team suite of programs or apps. So it wasn't very functional. It was kind of a nightmare, but it was giving us some of the reports that we wanted and doing some of the work for us and giving us tasks lists and stuff like that. Well, Casey, who's probably the newest full-time member I've got, came in one day and he said, I found this really good software. And I said, well, what is it? He said, D4H. And I said, okay, let's look at it. So we got online, started looking at it, and I called this really neat guy named Billy, and he gave me a demo, and that pretty much sold me. And of course, once we got it and started with it, we picked up with Marie to do our implementation. And it took us about 6 months to go through that and essentially hit our go live date.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you that I'm an overachiever. I was doing stuff before I was supposed to, and Marie said, "No, you got to go back and you got to change that." So anyway, we got it implemented. We're using it. I can tell you, we're not using it to its fullest extent yet, because as we go, the great team over at D4H is adding more stuff, and we're learning about stuff that I know Marie covered, but there was so much that, we missed some parts. Yeah. And so we're still learning and still doing more and more stuff with it. Your incident management control center stuff is awesome, and the equipment module that we got it's great too. We're required by law to do an annual audit, and when the auditing folks came in, I printed out the list from our equipment program, and what normally takes the better part of a day for them to do, they did it in an hour, because it told them what it was, had our county asset tag numbers on it, and utilizing the deal showing where everything was, they knew right where to go to find it. So it saved them time and us time, and I'm just totally thrilled. I mean, I could not be happier than I am with D4H.
Yeah, and I do want to say I did not give Steve any incentive or bribe to say any of that before we started the call today. That is totally genuine. What I do want to also talk about, because you brought up a lot of great stuff, and I do want to go through each leg of our software that you currently use. But I don't know if you know this, and I know a lot of the people on the live stream don't know this, but I think you were maybe my second or third customer ever when I first joined D4H. So when I hopped on a demo and you all were just as excited as I was about demoing the software, and that you've been with me quite literally since the beginning of my journey with D4H. So it's extremely rewarding to see that payoff and how excited you are about the software. And I'm glad that you're using it. So Steve and I go way back, but let's jump into the actual software too. I know you talked about Marie and implementation. It seemed like that was all smooth sailing. Before I go into the incident management platform, I want to talk a little bit about implementation, because as you said, you're an overachiever. You love to do things and work hard in the software. And I'm also just as much of a dork when it comes to building status boards and forms and custom items. If another agency or organization were to think about purchasing D4H or even implementing D4H, do you have any advice or tidbits that you would give to those individuals thinking about implementing such a software?
I would say, if they're looking at D4H, I would say run, don't walk, get the purchase order, and you get D4H just as quick as you can. Now, that being said, if you want to do it correctly, listen to what Marie tells you to do, and try not to be too much of an overachiever. But it is so simple. I mean, I'm not an IT person. I'm an old guy, and it was easy for me. It's been easy for Tiffany and Casey to do stuff in it, and like I said, we're learning more and more every day, and it's just one of those things that it's so easy to use. And now I have to admit that making it do some of the colors, I keep having to go to GP to get some help with that, because some of that stuff is still over my head. But when I call GP, he get online with me, and he'll either talk me through it or go through, and he can do it in 5 minutes what would take me 5 days.
Yep.
And so sometimes he just jumps in there and does it, and that's why I say you guys have some of the best customer support I've ever seen. And I am so happy with what we've got. Our incident management side is great. we had just been on board when we had that windstorm, and we did get in there and try to use it. Now, it was kind of haphazard because we actually hadn't gone through that part of it yet, but we were using the logs and stuff like that to try and enter stuff.
Yeah, and that speaks volume to how, less than 24 hours or something as you got the software, you went immediately into an incident and we're still using D4H in some minimal capacity, which again speaks volume to your ability to really use it simply and effectively. So no more teasing, no more waiting. Let's jump into talking about how you use the software now. And I know that you're using not a few of our products, you're using all of our products, but we'll start with the incident management platform first, Steve. So I first want to talk about how you referenced originally did your PDA. For those that don't know, public damage assessment assistance. You did that via paper. Have you replicated that status board in D4H, or what operations have you taken and kind of migrated over into D4H incident management?
Well, we've created some from scratch. What I did find helpful is the extension packs that you have available. If you go in there and look, I think it's like 103 status boards. And I probably don't need all of those, but I take them one at a time and I mess with them and see what they can do to help me out. You're looking at the hospital one right now. We only have one hospital, and so really a status board for that really wasn't going to do us much good. But then I went and included the hospitals around us. We're right next door to Dallas, which is one of the largest metropolitan areas in the country, and included some of their major hospitals, their level 1 trauma centers. And we built out a decent range of hospitals, and working with our partners at CareFlight, which is a nonprofit EMS provider. We've got stuff in there where we can monitor them and, cover mass casualty incidents or mass fatality incidents. And so it's all coming together. They have access to the software. And if it turns into something big, they jump on and they'll start updating us from their side, no matter where they are. And that's one of the best things about it. It doesn't have to be here in the office. You can do it from any laptop or cell phone, and it just works. And that's what's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel the same way. I don't use D4H in practice, but obviously, working for the company, I try to make content and videos. And when I'm using the software, I wish I was still in the field to use this software. I mean, granted, I have force-fed it to my ambulance corps, trying to get them to use at least the equipment management piece. But it's ridiculously seamless every time I walk into the software. So I'm great that that's consistent with you as well. So I want to dig in a little bit deeper with the incident management as well. You mentioned that windstorm that you had when you first got D4H, and obviously you've had D4H for probably about a year now, or at least a little less than a year. Has there been any incidents you could walk us through, or any case studies that you have used D4H incident management for a response or for a management in any capacity?
Yes, we've used them I don't know why, but it seems like it floods more often, more here recently. So we have used it, and my biggest problem is me trying to figure out how to use it best. We run a daily operations deal we do it by week, and we're entering stuff into the logs and our situation boards and stuff like that. But when we have an incident, do I kick over and just use the incident? And we're still in a kind of a back and forth mode on it, because some stuff we're still doing daily operations plus working an incident. So that's the part that we're trying to figure out, how to best utilize that.
Yeah, and it's always going to be an iteration. But I think also, as one, I think you can also speak to us, but the customizability and the ease and the flexibility of D4H to allow you to make those changes and to be dynamic and to pivot if you need to for a different incident. I think that's pretty nifty from the software. So
yeah.
Nice. So I want to talk about, I think, two more software, because you mentioned equipment management, and I know that you just picked up alerting as well, but I'm not sure if you've dabbled too much with the alerting software just yet. So let's start with the equipment management piece. So you're talking about the audit report and the reporting. Massive. I've heard that from a few customers, that whenever the auditors come around and you're just like, oh, here's the piece of paper you need, and then they're like, that's it, like, we're good to go. Tell me about your equipment management, how you use it, how it's been going for you, anything else that you can kind of speak to your experience using the software. And it doesn't have to be positive too. Like, if you're frustrated with something in equipment management, you can also let me know.
Well, I am totally for the equipment management side. Kind of the way we do it is we'll enter a piece of equipment, and the software will automatically assign a unique number to it. Mm-hmm. Well, once we get it in there, we go back and we'll take out the number that D4H assigns and put in our own asset tag number. And we have tons of equipment. One of the unique things that we do is our office oversees the automatic external defibrillators, or AEDs, in our county facilities. And we've got about 30 of those. And it helps my folks, when we go around quarterly to inspect them, to have the asset tags along with the inspection report. And this time around, they did it all from their phones. They looked at it, compared numbers, checked off and passed it, and it worked like a champ. We did find one instance where I double entered a AED, and once we tracked it down, we simply deleted the one that was doubled. Mm-hmm. And I know how I did that, because one of the features of it is you can duplicate when you got multiples of the same thing. And I put in probably 15 when I should have put in 14.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So,
hey, at least you caught it, and it was easy enough for you to find it and be like, hey, that doesn't look right, and then just get rid of it.
And we've got personal radiation detectors that this week I've been working on those, making sure everything matches. And we found one, and we're not sure whether we've lost it or if it was never there to begin with. And even our county records are not clear on it. So we're still trying to figure out what happened to that one. But we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's a great program. There's so many different parts of it. And, we've got our vehicles in there. And now, granted, we set that up to coincide with our annual inspection. Now, Texas doesn't do inspections anymore, but we're in that air quality attainment area. So we have to have those done. So once a year, when that's done, we can check it off on our deal in D4H. We've got response trailers we've got one emergency operations center support unit and a public works emergency response team trailers. And we go through, check inventory, check those off the same way. And they're done on an annual, but some stuff is quarterly. Our generators, we start them once a week, and we set them up on a weekly. So, I mean, it's just awesome the way that it allows you to check on these things and keep them all up to date.
Yeah, and it does it automatically. Well, not automatically. I mean, you enter in the information, but then it just pings you like, oh, you should inspect that. And that's really just makes your life easy. Now, Steve, I am going to give you a little bit of a fun challenge here. So we did have a question come over the chat from Martin. Martin, thank you for paging in today. So, Steve, I want to see if you can answer this. I'm pretty confident you got a good answer for this, but I'll help in and assist you if you get stuck there. How can fire departments use D4H? And do they have to purchase only certain modules, or do they have to purchase everything? How do you kind of guide a fire department into maybe purchasing or going about D4H?
Well, I spent over 32 years with the Dallas Fire Department, and I wished we'd had something like this, because utilizing the incident management side of it, you can actually tag your resources and stuff at the scene in a command post, whether it be in the back of a chief's vehicle or a fully blown incident command post. But you can get in there and you can keep track of the incident in that. Uh, Part of the deal is maps. You can put maps and stick pins in there for different things. I'm not using it as a fire department deal, so I can't go too far with it. But from my experience, it would be excellent. And I can tell you the equipment side of it would be even greater, because you can take a piece of equipment, such as a pumper or engine, fire engine, or ladder truck or something like that, and go in there and say, okay, I've got this equipment and it's in compartment 1 or compartment 2 or whatever. And you can know where everything is, and you can take your cell phone or tablet or whatever. When you do your inspections in the morning, make sure you got everything. You can go along and you can just punch it off on there. I mean, if I'd had something like that years ago, I wouldn't have spent, 2 hours every morning at the station checking off equipment, making sure we got everything.
Yeah.
So that part of it would be, to me, even more valuable than just the incident management stuff. But it could definitely be used for the fire service. And I'd be willing to bet if there were some tweaks that needed to be done to help a fire department out, I think D4H would be, willing to jump in there and, rise to the challenge.
Absolutely. And honestly, I don't even need to be on the call. Steve can do my job for me with that sales pitch. But Martin, I'll also build on top of that. So first, if you're a volunteer fire department, we also offer discounts to volunteer organizations. So we make it affordable for volunteer agencies. I spent about 5 years in fire service. Along with the equipment, I think that's a phenomenal ad, but also the personnel and training. You can actually track all of your qualifications, all of your people, all their availability, all their experience, all their attendance. So if you need to get, ICS recert, or you need to stay up to date on bailout or fit testing or any sort of aspect of your fire department, you'll have it in front of you in that software. So we do have a lot of fire departments who use us. I recommend going to the customers section on d4h.com and reading about some case studies there. Steve, I know that you also you've purchased, Martin, great. Yeah, very good response. Thank you. Yes, it would be good for equipment checkoff. Thank you. Yeah, you got it. Steve, thank you for also hopping in on that.
And the personnel is what you mentioned that I didn't. We use that to track all of our training and everything.
Yep.
And it is awesome. Now, when we built out all of our deals that your credentials and stuff, we had to go a little further, because I've got a couple of folks that are in our department or in the county that actually are PhD people and master's degrees and stuff like that. So we put those in there, and we put all of our NIMS qualifications in there, National Incident Management System, and we went right down the list and put everything in there. So we've got a pretty extensive list of credentials for everybody.
Yeah.
And that is an excellent piece of the program too.
Yeah. And so I think we only have, I know we have the incident reporting piece, but I kind of want to focus more on the alerting piece. I don't know. Do you have anything to add about incident reporting? Have you used the incident report? I mean, apart from the audit reports that you create, right? Have you used incident reporting for like an after action report or for any other documentation in emergency management from your experience?
We have not used that yet. And I'm still trying to figure out the reports and how to do that. That was
not
a big piece of the implementation. So I'm trying to learn that.
Yeah, of course.
And I'll probably be calling GP or Marie again for help, but I can, and Sarah is really good. I'm trying to get her in touch with somebody at D4H so she can kind of explain what we're looking for on that, and maybe if it's something they can talk us through to build ourselves, or maybe something that y'all could do on the back end to make it easier for us. And so that's one thing we haven't used. Now,
Yep.
You were right about the alerting. We just recently added that when we renewed our subscription to D4H.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already used it a couple of times, not the critical alert.
Yep.
But we've sent some information notices and stuff like that out, and it works great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've got one person that says he doesn't want us to hit the critical alert because it will bypass your silenced phone.
It will, yeah.
And he's kind of worried about that. And I said, well, if I hit the critical button, that means I'd need it to go past your silenced phone and wake you up and get you up here. So,
right. Do its job as it's supposed to do as a critical alert, which is so funny. Like people are like, oh, I don't want that notification. Well, you don't really have a choice. Like we need you for the emergency response. So, I do want to focus on this new product a little bit more because I know that, this is the perfect example because it's a brand new product. And by brand new, I mean, it's 6 months old, maybe. We're releasing new features left and right for alerting. I know that you've been looking for new features, including the mobile application, which hopefully will be coming, I think, sometime this year, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Have you used other alerting software, or with your experience with notifications and communications, could you speak a little bit more in detail about what you like about alerting or why it's been so easy to use in your experience in the field?
Well, to be honest, we've had a mass notification system, Everbridge, for some time, and it's excellent software, and I would recommend that to anybody.
I agree.
But it's a lot more button pushes to get a notice out to folks.
Yep.
Alerting is simpler. It's quicker and easier to get a notice out to our staff. The other one is we have it and we'll keep it because it's what we notify our citizens with. The alerting in D4H is not meant for that, but it alerts all of our internal partners when we have something as to what's going on, and we plan on being able to say, hey, be on standby. We're going to activate the EOC, or, something in there. If I have to say, tornado's about to hit you, duck.
Right.
We've got that ability. So it's another thing that we're learning to use. But I think as far as internal communications, it's going to give us a whole lot more ways to get a hold of folks.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. I think I used the exact same pitch on a demo earlier today where, there are really phenomenal notification software out there. I used Everbridge for years when I worked for New York City, but there's different strengths and different weaknesses between both softwares where some might love the simplicity, as you said, of literally either one button push or a 2-button push of putting out a notification for notifying an internal response. But then also, alerting is so new, we're growing. Everbridge is a little bit more robust and carries that strength and that power there. So that was spot on to what I was hoping you'd speak to as well. So as we're getting towards the back end of this live stream, now is kind of the fun part of talking about, what you like about D4H, what you don't like about, D4H. So I want to start with more of a targeted question. So first, and I think you've mentioned a bunch, and maybe you can repeat one or maybe pull out a new experience. But was there one moment when you were using D4H that you were like, man, this was the right decision. This was the right purchase to make for our agency?
Well, it has been in some of the recent, flooding or incident situations that have come up. By being able to jump in there and create an incident and filling in everything, it just makes me feel so much better than trying to do it the old way, because in the past we would do it on the computer, but you were writing a bunch of stuff out, and if you're going through different operational periods, you'd come in and you put the new stuff in blue and then the old stuff would be in black, and making sure you didn't mess that up. And in years past, some of those have gotten to be 50, 60, 75 pages long because it was long duration. With what we've got with D4H and the auditing piece of that, I think that it's going to be very beneficial so that we can, keep everything updated. I'm still not sure how to let them know what the new one says versus the old one. But, you've got the auditing side, so you can go back and see what was there and see what was new. So it's not going to be hard, but, and some of it may be just that I haven't figured out how to do it yet.
Absolutely. So the next part of the question, and this is one that I get a lot from local emergency management agencies. How has D4H changed the way that you collaborate or communicate across departments, jurisdictions, the interoperability, right? Like communicating with the state, communicating with other counties. How has D4H potentially improved that process for you?
Well, to be honest, it hasn't really helped with the other county departments because they would have to be jumping in there and communicating in the first place.
Yep.
And I can't believe I just said that. Hopefully I still got my job tomorrow. But no, we're still growing to the point where a lot of our county departments don't know what their role is or what to do. And when you're short staffed to start with, it's hard to do educational stuff to bring them on board and teach them what they need to know. The state, I wish the state would buy D4H to make my life simpler. They're using a competitor, which in my personal opinion is nowhere near user friendly. It's very difficult. You know who I'm talking about. But
yep, they who shall not be named. We'll keep it going.
It's just very difficult to work with, and I use it for, the resource request is about all I use it for because it's just too hard and difficult to use. To me, I think, and this is just another opinion of mine, but I think if enough local people get into D4H, see how good the program is, and can convince our states to start using D4H, and then all the states get together and say, all of us states need to use D4H, then everybody will be compatible. And I think that interoperability thing that we all talk about will make a world of difference in how we respond to disasters, whether locally, statewide, or nationally. And I'll back Billy up. He didn't pay me to say that just then. I firmly believe that this is one of the best softwares out there.
I agree. I work for the company. Obviously, I'm a bit more biased, but I'm glad that we're on the same page there. I do have 1.5 more questions. So this is kind of like the last big one, and then I kind of like a little promo question. So you've talked about so many positive things about D4H and maybe a little sprinkle of improvements or critiques, but is there anything that you'd like to see different in D4H? Anything you think we should improve? Any constructive feedback? And be gentle and be honest though. Is there anything that you think maybe our software could do better?
Well, just on the surface, the mobile app for your alerting would be good. And of course, you already said you're working on that. The reports side of everything, I'm still having trouble with that, so I'm not sure how robust the reporting is and how we can capture all the information in it. Now, if that's a training thing on our part, that's one thing, but it may be something that, D4H may want to look into and see how you can make that more user-friendly. Because, it gives me lists of reports I can pull that are already in there. Well, they're good, but they're not what I want. Because see, what I want to do is track the time that we spend on disasters and even on our day-to-day office work, so I can generate reports when we go into our budget process say, look, this is what we're doing day to day. This is how much time we're spending on these disasters. And when I can show all the things that we're doing with the logs and the time spent and everything like that, that will easily justify more manpower for my office. So that's kind of why I'm looking at possibly getting with y'all to do some improvements there. But as far as things to improve upon, there's not many that I've found yet. And the ones that I've found and have talked to GP about, he fixes them before I can get off the phone call. So, again, that superior customer support, just does wonders for y'all. And so that everybody knows I'm not going to work for D4H. When I retire from this job, it will be sitting on my back porch watching the sun go up and down. So, but I have no problem. If you talk to the folks in this region, they'll tell you I speak my mind and I tell you the truth every time. And if I tell you it's good, it's good. If I tell you it's bad, it's bad. And right now I'm telling you D4H is good. It's great.
Yes, sir. And I do want to do a little spoiler alert. We actually can do the daily activity tracking and hour tracking in incident reporting. So I think we should definitely hop on a phone call to get you that training expertise that you need to pull that report. But it definitely is a feature in there. So what we'll do with the last bit here, and it's not even something I planned, but you said you're not working for D4H, but we are going to be sending you some brochures and some socks, I believe, from our marketing manager, Amy. Do you want to speak a little bit about the conference Texas has coming up in the region next month?
Yep. And at the end of May, I think it's the 27th through the 30th, the Texas Division of Emergency Management will host the Texas Emergency Management Conference in Fort Worth, Texas. And it is a huge event. And I've asked for some brochures to hand to some of my colleagues over there, because like I've said throughout this live stream, I'm sold on D4H and I don't mind telling people about it. So they're going to send me some brochures. I'm going to give them to some of the folks that I talk with over there. But it's a great conference. If you look for a conference to go to, this is the one to go to. And because there are some really good informational sessions. They have an excellent exhibit hall with hundreds of exhibitors in there, and you can see equipment, and they even bring helicopters and set them up inside the exhibit hall, which is kind of weird, but I still hadn't figured out whether they fly them in or they wheel them in.
I really hope it's the former, but I think it's the latter, unfortunately, because can you imagine flying that that'd be really cool.
Well, I want to meet the pilot if they fly them in.
Right. That's wild. All right. Well, Steve, that's all I had lined up and planned. Is there any parting thoughts you'd like to leave with the audience before we sign off and say our thank yous?
Well, I would say, thank you for allowing me to participate in the live stream. To me, it's an honor, especially being worldwide and knowing that there are people in all parts of this great earth that are out there that are on this session. And I would like to say to everybody that's on here, I appreciate your service, whether in the fire service, law enforcement, or emergency management. And just tell you to, go out there and let's do our job and take care of our citizens, and everybody be safe and come home. And again, thank you to you, Billy and Amy, and the whole D4H team.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, you heard it here first. So, Steve, thanks again for joining today. Thank you for your service. Thank you again for your support of D4H, and looking forward to getting you that content for the conference to hand out. Big thanks to Amy on the back end for maintaining this live stream. Thank you so much for everybody for joining. And with that, we will be ending the live stream, and we'll see you all next time. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.